Welcome to the Rent to Rent Success podcast, all about creating consistent cash flow, escaping the 9-to-5, and really living life on your terms. This is the only podcast entirely dedicated to helping you achieve rent to rent success. It's our place to inspire each other to believe bigger, to be bolder, and to be game changers for good. I'm Stephanie Taylor, your guide on this exciting ride. Let's start up the engines and get ready to fly. Hello, and welcome to episode 5 of the Rent to Rent Success podcast. Do come inside, make yourself comfy, have a cup of tea, coffee, maybe something stronger. While I'm sitting here recording for you, I wonder where you are, what you're doing. Are you at the gym? Are you out walking? Oh, no, you can't be at the gym because I'm recording this while we're in lockdown. But are you out walking? Are you driving? Are you in bed? Let me know. I would love to know where you are when you're listening to this. Send me a message and let me know. So today we are talking about the second most popular question I get asked, which is, but why would a landlord give a property to me? If you kind of get what rent to rent is all about and you get the theory of it, but you still sort of have your doubts about whether it really works in practice, this episode is going to break it down with real life examples about why landlords and agents do work with people just like you who don't have any property experience. I know it sounds impossible and implausible, but stick with me on this one. And if you're just joining us for the first time today, then do go back to episode 1 as the episodes build on each other sequentially to give you a full view of rent-to-rent success. So you get a lot out of that. But before I start today, I just want to thank you again for all your support in pushing me forward with this. I really appreciate the ratings and reviews. And if you haven't done that yet, I would love you to please do that on Apple or wherever you're listening to this podcast. So let's dive in. To the people are really incredulous when they ask me, why would a landlord give a property to me? And they add an exclamation mark to the end of it. They understand how rent to rent works. They accept that it's legal, but they absolutely draw the line at believing that any landlord or letting agent would give a property to them. And if this thought has crossed your mind, then you're in good company. I think most people think this, and I certainly did as well. And yeah, most people have the same sort of hesitation. And yet, people are getting their first properties from landlords and letting agents every day, people without prior experience with property and without huge pots of cash in the bank. So, how are they doing that? That's what we're answering this episode. And they're doing it because HMO landlords and letting agents have problems that you can solve. There are 3 main things that both landlords and agents want. And you'll probably be able to guess the main ones, the main 2. They want the rent paid, number 1. And number 2, they want the property looked after. The one that people often forget is that they want minimal risk in the transaction. And agents tend to be a little bit more risk averse than landlords because as an agent, you're looking after someone else's property, someone else's asset, and you never want to be in the position of going back and explaining that you made a bad decision. So agents will be more risk averse and will do more checks than a landlord would. And there's one additional thing that agents want that's really highest on their list. It's the thing that makes the agent's business work. It relies on. And agents want to make sure that their fees are being paid, that their agent commissions are going to be safe. And so When you learn how to describe your solution effectively, you become an irresistible option for your perfect customers. And in future episodes, we'll be talking about how you can be magnetic with what you say. We're going to talk all about our methods for magnetic marketing. Have you ever had the feeling of wanting more? I have. Raw cashew nuts, cute dash hound photos, and Susie Q all do it for me. And you're listening here. You're loving it. Okay, I'm guessing here. You want to take things to the next level? Okay, I'm an optimist. Come over and see us at rent2rentsuccess.com. That's rentsuccess.com and get to see us in person. We've got a lot of juicy rent to rent goodness going on over there. Videos, blogs, free training and guides. I know you're going to love it. So check it out at rent2rentsuccess.com. You might think that experience is the most important thing that landlords and agents look for, but it isn't. The thing that we need to be able to convince them on is that we are a minimal risk option. And because you're offering something different, they will view you as a risk. So how do you show that you're a low risk option? And the two most important things here are likability and trust. As I was saying, people often think experience is the most important thing. But if that were true, then no one would ever get their first deal. And I know it seems unlikely that likability and trust are more important. But you'll have seen evidence all around you in Facebook groups and maybe with people you know, friends or acquaintances who've all got their first deals without any experience. So let me illustrate this with a story. This is actually our story of when we got our first deal before we were ready and without any HMO experience. So at the time, I was still working in Bristol full-time as a contractor for a bank. I was going to say for a bank in financial services, but yeah, obviously. So I was working for Lloyd's actually full-time as a contractor. And I was half excited and confident and enjoying the thrill of getting started in rent to rent. And I was half terrified that I was making a hideous mistake and that I would end up wishing I'd listened to all the people who told me that it wouldn't work. At first, the very idea that someone would entrust their property to me was laughable. But I leaned into it because I just felt so determined. Because Mum's telephone call continually came back to haunt me. And it wasn't so much the call itself that was haunting me. Oh, this is the call that I talked about in episode 1, when you know that telephone call that changed everything. It wasn't so much the call itself. It was reflecting on it in the afternoon while I was sitting at my desk at the bank. And that awful, awful feeling in my gut because I knew that I'd made the wrong decision. It was the moment when I realized that I was making the bank and the job more important than the people who I say I love and I care for, the people I want to share my life with. So feeling those feelings whenever I thought of giving up spurred me on. And those feelings as well spurred me to think about walking into a large high street letting agent one Saturday lunchtime. And I was absolutely petrified. My belly was in knots and I hovered a safe distance away, hoping I was out of sight. And I stood there, I was dithering and I was shifting my weight from one leg to the other, talking myself into going in and then talking myself out of going in. And it felt like I must have just been there for a few minutes. But eventually I said to myself, Stephanie, pull yourself together and go in. What's the worst that can happen. So I went in and I heard myself saying in that strangled sounding voice that didn't sound like me at all, "Do you have any HMOs?" Okay, it might not have been like that, but it's you know when you get that feeling that you're outside your body looking at yourself and you're not actually in the situation. It was like that. And it was, I found out later it was the branch manager who was there. And I said, "Do you have any HMOs?" And she said, "Is it subletting?" "We don't do subletting." And I said, "Oh, I see. Maybe it's something for the smaller independent agents we work with." Where was this stuff coming from? I'd never said this before. And she said, head office would need to approve it, and I don't think we would get approval for the contracts. And side note, oh my gosh, what I'm about to tell you here could be a gold mine for you. So take notes, because what I said next totally surprised me too. At the time, I said, "Oh, I see. Well, I suppose with you not knowing us, that you'd want to get to know our work first before vouching for us to your head office." And this is the juicy bits. "Would you consider introducing us to any of your tenant find only landlords?" I was really amazed to hear those words coming out of my mouth, as that wasn't something that I had planned. But it worked, because suddenly it's as though a light bulb had gone off in her head, and she started ushering me towards this large screen. And there she brought up 2 listings for HMOs, both on the same street, a few doors down from each other, 1 5-bed and 1 4-bed. And oh my goodness, I thought, what if I get this deal? And I was excited. And then I was thinking, oh my goodness, what if I get this deal? And I was thinking, oh my gosh, what would I do? And I was sort of horrified, terrified. But how I kept my composure, I really don't know. But I did keep my composure, and we arranged a viewing, and that was where it all started. So I'm so glad that day that I made myself go in there, because it was one of those big high street letting agents. It was a big franchise agency. And I really didn't think that they would be interested. So I was glad that I made myself go in. I made myself go for no, and it all worked out. So, but people do ask me, well, what do you mean by tenant find only? So there are 2 main services that letting agents provide. One is a fully managed service, and that's where the letting agent does everything. They find the tenant, and then they look after the tenant in the property. The tenant pays the rent to the letting agent. The letting agent keeps their commission and then pays the rest to the landlord. So if the rent was £1,000, the tenant would pay £1,000 to the agent, and then say if it was a 10% commission, the agent's keeping £100 and paying £900 to the landlord, just to give you an example. And letting agents love that model, because that's a recurring revenue for their business, and that's their preferred model, because the strength of the agency requires them to have a lot of these fully managed properties. The other service that they provide is for landlords who want to manage the property themselves, but want the letting agent to find the tenant and do all the paperwork for them. So that's called a tenant find only. And that's what I asked about in this situation. And letting agents don't like these as much, because for that service, they only get a one-off fee. They get a one-off fee from the landlord. But it can be very attractive for you if you also offer to pay a tenant find fee. Now, especially because there's a tenant fee ban, letting agents are missing out on about 30% of their revenue. So if you also would offer to pay a finder's fee if they introduce you to tenant find only landlords, then that's a win for both you and for the agent. So just to explain that part, because I know sometimes people don't understand what agents do and how they get paid. So we went to the viewing, and at the viewing, Nicky and I met the owner and the letting agent. And my heart was just racing out of my chest as we walked around the house. It was 1 4-bed and 1 5-bed HMO. Each were advertised for £800 a month. And I know this might seem unbelievably low if you're based in London, but the backstory is that they had both been on for 1100, 1,100. One had been on for 1,100 and the other one for 1,000. And then student lets had died in Newport, and the landlord was having trouble filling them. And that's why he'd gone to the agent, because normally the landlord did everything himself. So that's how we got our first deal with no experience. It's because landlords and letting agents are looking for something that's more important than experience. They're looking for likability and trust. So they knew it was our first property, but they could see that we were keen, that we turned up with our clipboards, that we wanted to do our best and put our best foot forward. And, you know, our landlord said later on that he'd seen a group of 4 guys, but he didn't like the look of them. And when he saw us, he did like the look of us, but he didn't know whether we'd last, he said. He said we seemed too nice. But he decided to give us a try. And that'll happen for you as well, that somebody will decide to give you a try. The good thing for you is that some letting agents are so bad at managing HMOs because it's not what they do, that landlords are willing to try other things. And yeah, so you will get your first deal. Just put yourself out there and keep looking and asking. Are you ready to take the next step, but you still have so many questions unanswered? We got you. You can get your free rent-to-rent success guide at rent2rentsuccess.com/guide. That's rentsuccess.com/guide, and it'll walk you through what rent to rent is all about, and you'll see whether it's right for you. Okay then, now let's get back to today's show. So just a reminder of what landlords and agents are looking for. They're looking for the rent paid, the property looked after, and importantly, minimal risk in the transaction. And for agents only, they're looking to get their fees and commission paid. So today, I wanted to cover why landlords and agents will give you properties as a newbie. And I'll be talking in future episodes about how exactly to do it. So do stay tuned for those. Because when it comes to talking to landlords and agents, those are the things that will help you move forward. Yet many people are hesitant. Having those viewings, having those conversations is what will drive your business. So you have to do it. Ideas are cheap. Execution is everything, because so much of success is just staying on track and doing the things that move you forwards to fulfilling your goals. It isn't about big leaps every once in a while that make the difference. It's consistent actions that you take every day that will change your life in a big way. So commit to doing the things, even if you feel uncomfortable, just do it, even on the days where you don't really feel like it. And the important thing to help you to do this is to remember to surround yourself with people who have the results you want, whether that's friends, acquaintances, networking. And you know you can join our Rent to Rent Success Secrets Facebook group. Loads of information, inspiration in there, and lots of like-minded people just the same as you who want to change their lives. Or if you're really ready to accelerate your results and work with us step by step, you can join our Rent to Rent Kickstarter program. So success is always outside your comfort zone. So keep going, keep taking the steps you need to take until you get the results you want. And in next week's episode, I'm going to talk more about how to deliver great results for yourself, because we are our own worst enemy sometimes. And this will explain why, and more importantly, what to do about it. So look forward to seeing you in the next week. And that's it for this week. I hope you've been enjoying this. I certainly have. Thanks for the reviews. Those of you who've left them, please leave a review if you haven't already. And until next week, have a great rest of the week. And remember, believe bigger, be bolder, and be a game changer. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like the links for anything mentioned in today's episode, or if voice is not enough and you want to see us on video too, you can find all the show notes and lots more at renttorentsuccess.com. That's rent number 2, rentsuccess.com. If you've enjoyed today's episode, we'd super appreciate it if you would take a few minutes to review it in your podcast app. Remember, we'll be donating to our B1G1 charities too for each review you give. Until then, believe bigger, be bolder, be a game changer.